my chat. Nope, sorry. I wanted to make sure I had my my chat set properly. Live chat. There we go. So everything's going to be visible. It is the last day of June, and tomorrow is a holiday. I hope everyone is staying safe. If you're in Ottawa, there's some crazy things happening. Oh, let me turn off my notifications too, because my phone is telling me that we're live on YouTube. I'm like, yes, I'm aware I'm live on YouTube. I'm live on YouTube. We're at the end. We're ready to put our quilt together. So you should have at this point sewn all of your bell flowers, your Copihues together, which is just that one seam down the middle. And now we're going to put them together, and I'm going to show you one of them. I've done, let me see if I've got it here. So I've put together the other two sides. If I roll back far enough, you'll see it all. So yes, that's it. This middle piece here was supposed to be cut. This is called sashing. So I've put together most of this, and what you're going to do is you're going to put together the long block flowers, and then you attach the sashing to them and then attach them to each other. So you're putting together 3 blocks of 2 flowers. On page 6, it shows you the different layouts. So if you were doing a different size, if you were doing a much bigger size, you'd have more rows of these flowers. We're only doing 2. So I've got, and I spent a portion of, I can't remember what day it was, I think Tuesday, putting together the layout of how I wanted stuff. And I realized I made one mistake because one of my rainbows is upside down compared to how it's supposed to be. So, because on the baby quilt, 4 of the flowers are facing down and only 2 of them are facing up. But at the end of the day, I don't really care. My kid has asked me for this when it's done, so I will give it to them. So I've got things already pinned here. I'm going to move everybody over so we can see my sewing machine. I'm going to put this down ever so slightly. If you're watching and you've got an account and can say hi to me, I would love for you to say hi to me, because I feel like I'm very alone and talking to myself. And the person who is watching has just gone. Oh no. That's okay. Okay, we'll reposition this ever so slightly. So there is my machine. So I'm going to piece this block is it's the B2. We don't use B3 for the baby quilt. B2 is the 2.5 by 9.5. So that's like the spacers. Oh, I have to, no. Reduce my stitch length. Oh, and I'm going to turn my iron on because I'm going to need that. And at the very end of this, I'm going to go over talking a little bit about the quilting process, and I'm going to demonstrate binding. But I won't do all of it because it will take long, and I haven't, obviously, I'm just finishing this top, so I can't bind this quilt at this point. But I have the runner ready to be bound. There we go. Okay, and so we're going to come and press our seams. It doesn't matter which way you press them because all of the seams don't match with another one of the bellflowers. Like these seams, it doesn't matter which way you press them. I'm going to press this like this. I'm going to turn this ever so slightly. Ooh, that gets really hot really fast. Like really, really fast. There we go. That gives me a better working surface. So I'm going to press this seam towards the spacer here. And I'm going to do the same with the one for the leaves. I need some, oh, there we go. Some steam. And because I am a forgetful person, this one goes at the top, I think. Yes. So this one, and then this one also goes face down. So I'm going to pin them like so. And wait. Like so. So you're just sewing these big blocks together basically. And then the leaves. No, that can't be right. Sorry, this one is supposed to be the other way around. See, that's why we double check. What's the saying? Measure twice, cut once. So otherwise you got to seam rip it out. It's okay. And no one's watching this. And maybe someone will watch this eventually, and you will hear that I am in the process of making the prototype for the next sew along. And if you read the email newsletter the other day, you also saw news about our next sew along, which is the Sandhill Sling, which I'm very, very excited about. This is a little not even. That's okay. All right. Here we go. So back over to the sewing machine. I know someone was following along with this, so hopefully you watch it eventually. Listen to me talk to myself. Some of these seams are very, very thick, and I find just gently guiding from the back helps my machine go through them. Like you can hear there probably that tunk. And if I was so inclined, I probably would have chain pieced some of these blocks and then attached the sashing. But I wanted to get most of this quilt done before actually coming on air. This did not like that. That's fine. We're going to try this again. No, this does not like what I'm doing. Which means we need the seam ripper. It's my favorite part. It's like knotting in the back. It's not actually my favorite part. I'm going to turn around and sew it from the other side. It's too thick of a seam to start on. That's the issue. I don't know what I was saying. That's okay. Okay, something is like way stuck here. Stupid machine. Ooh, I don't know what it's doing. It's okay. Just start it a little ways in. Perfect. And then we're going to iron that spacer again. So back over here. So towards the center. I really, really, really love this iron. I know someone ended up buying one from a recommendation from me. And if you've, spoken to me at any point, I will talk to you about my fantastic little iron. I'm very, very happy with it. Okay. It gets really hot really fast. Like, I'm amazed at how fast it gets hot. So now we're going to take the 3.5-inch piece that is width of fabric, and we are going to, and we want to make sure that we're doing this right. So it's supposed to go like that, like that, like that. So I need to put the sashing on this side. And the sashing is going to end up being longer than your panel. And so what you'll do is you'll just, and honestly, when I sewed them this afternoon, I just sewed them, but I'll pin them for you guys. It's going to end up being longer than your panel that you've just put together, than your blocks. So you will have to trim it after the fact. And you do want to trim it before piecing it together, because you want to make sure that your flowers are lined up. Because if you just sew it, then your flowers won't be lined up, and that's not what you want. So back to the sewing machine. And I don't have my little cutting mat tool thing here this time, so it's really honestly just like a lot of people ask us, like one of the questions we get is like, can I quilt? Is quilting hard? And it's like, it's not really. It's a lot of straight lines. It's a lot of sewing. You do have to be, somewhat precise. It's a skill that you learn, and the more you quilt, the more precise you become. And this one has some curves, but there are lots of patterns out there that don't have curves, that aren't super tricky, and look really, really nice. And yeah, and if you don't like binding, there's ways of getting around that. If you don't like the actual quilting part, send your quilt to a long armor. We have recommendations for those. So it's definitely an achievable skill for people who are adventurous beginners, and if you've got patience. You do have to know how to operate a sewing machine. There's a fair bit of math, because sewing is math, just like baking. But the results are equally delicious. Snuggly. And honestly, having a 1/4-inch foot really helps. It means that, you're not guessing as to where your 1/4-inch is. So I'm just going to press my seam towards this sashing and hope I did this right. Because otherwise, I did check. I know I checked. Otherwise, I'm going to have to, redo it again, which I don't want to do. The only thing I will say I don't like about this iron is sometimes I like the weight of a bigger iron, because it really helps push the seam. Also standing. Standing seems to help quite a bit, which I am not doing right now. Clearly, I am sitting. And it's a bit long, obviously. It's 44 inches because that's the width of fabric. So you can see that I've got this like extra tail bit at the top. So I'm going to go cut that off. I'm going to go over to my cutting mat here and just make sure that everything's squared up. They've disappeared for a moment from the frame of the camera. I'm sorry. And then do the same on the other end. And see, ta-da! You've got like a whole big panel. And then we're going to attach that to the rest of this quilt. So I'm going to bring this over here. I'm going to lay this on top like this, and it should line up. So we're going to pin it. And then the last part of this is that you put on the borders, and I've got to double check what the pattern says. I think you sew the side borders on first and then the top borders. But again, it's just like big, long sewing. So it's not anything that's super tricky or is unachievable. It's just big, long sewing. So that's that. Make sure this doesn't get pulled around, turned around. So as I go through this, the next step is basting and then quilting. You've got to pick a backing and batting. For quilting, the easiest thing to do is straight lines. Just, this is, why is this too short? That's fine. We're just going to, and don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't, you know, stretch a solid or stretch a woven fabric, because you can entirely stretch a woven fabric. And that's what I'm going to do to make sure that this is, you know, even along all of here. So yes, so I like spray basting. I use 505 spray baste, which we have at the store. It is fast. I roll my quilt onto a fabric tube. You can use a pool noodle, or if you're in Ottawa, come to the store and ask us for a fabric tube and we will give you one. We have lots. And you just unroll your quilt top onto your batting, spraying as you go underneath it. And I think there's a video of me on Facebook spray basting a quilt together. So if you're like, oh, how do you actually do that? In our social group, there's a saved video of me doing it. Maybe we need to do it with a smaller project so you folks can see. But yes, the simplest method of quilting is just straight line quilting. I find I need to mark everything out because my eyes are not great. And I need to see in order to be able to follow along. Come on there. That said, you can find lots of really great inspiration if you search. Most quilt patterns have like a hashtag, and if you search the hashtag, you can see what everybody else has done and take your inspiration from there. So I'm not 100% certain how I'm going to quilt this quilt yet. It will probably end up being something something straight. I'm on YouTube, buddy, right now. You're gonna have to wait, sweetie. Okay, go get Uncle Dan. Go get Uncle Dan. I might have to end this video shortly because my little guy's not feeling great today. Had to miss the last day of school, unfortunately. I was just going to talk very quickly about, I'm going to stop doing this because we are probably going to have to cut this short. I was going to talk very quickly about binding. I'm going to just close my door. So the way you sew your binding is you cut out these strips, and then you don't have to cut them on the bias, but you sew them, you do them face to face, sew a diagonal line, and then when you open it up on that diagonal line, it's one big long strip. And when you're binding your quilt, what you're going to do is just lay it out like this. On the right side, you're going to sew that 1/4 inch, and then you'll be able to turn it over. You can sew it again with the machine. You can hand stitch it, and you will have to join it. There's a method. It's the same as if you've sewn bias on a garment. I'm very possibly going to, I'm going to do this very quickly. I will possibly end up doing a bonus 5th video because we are going to have to cut this one short. I'm going to have to go deal with whatever's happening out there. But that is essentially, and like I said, then you're doing the same method with piecing. The pattern says, repeat step 5, from backing fabric piece, a backing 8 inches larger than the quilt top. No, that's not it. Oh, sorry, B5. That's the sashing. If needed, sew B5 border strips together. You don't need to with the baby quilt. Measure the height of the quilt, cut the side borders, sew B5 borders to left and right side. So yes, so you do the sides first, and then you do the top and the bottom. And it's same. Make sure you trim so that everything's even. But that's the extent of it. So yeah, if anybody has questions when they watch this on the rewatch, pop them in the comments. My son told me I have to tell people, if you like this video, like and subscribe. It helps us. Yeah, we look forward to you joining us for the next sew along in August. That's it. Take care, everybody.